Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, this is At the Helm Sports. I'm your host, Derek Helm. Thank you for joining me for episode 174. Please be sure to follow and subscribe on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Leave those 5-star reviews if you're watching on YouTube. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and down in the comments section, let me know. For the Valspar Championship on Draftkings, are you going to play any wave stacks? Because it looks like we are going to have some weather. Looks like the AM PM could have a clear advantage. So just really interested to see how many people are actually going to go that route this week. As I said, we're going to dive into the Valspar. Quickly, we could recap the players, though. Obviously, one of the bigger tournaments of the year, usually one of my more favorite tournaments of the year. You know, it basically kicks off the important part of the season, basically lets you know the majors are right around the corner, and good for Rory. You know, I said after he won Pebble that it could be a big year for him, and I still think that's definitely the case. I think he wins a major this year. Now, he almost lost it, and it would have been insane if he would have missed that short putt on 18. And you know, he had the 3-stroke lead, kind of gave it up, but it just, there was too many scrubs in contention, and nobody wanted to really go out and take it from him. So good for him. He ends up with another Players Championship, and as I said, I could definitely see him winning a major this year. Now, as I said, down the stretch, just nobody could really pull away. Bhatia couldn't make any putt whatsoever. You could see the frustration in him. He had no confidence in his putter. Glover as well. I mean, Morikawa just couldn't make a putt all day. He had more than enough birdie opportunities and just could not capitalize there. And then Spawn, you know, looked like he was going to make that putt on 18 and obviously came up a little bit short, forced the playoff. And then it just, you know, when they got to 17 on Monday, you saw him glance at Rory's bag, and I don't know if that made him make the wrong decision. Maybe he was just thinking that he needed a little extra club with the wind and just seeing where Rory's shot landed. But I don't know. I think really once Rory got up one, it was just too much for him, and he kind of just pressed. So, you know, maybe he was a little bit amped up, and that's why he flew the green. But obviously, it was Rory's day, and it would have been nice to see Spawn. I don't know. For some reason, I don't dislike Rory, but just anytime he's in contention, I find myself rooting for the other guy. So I don't know what it is. As I said, I don't really dislike the guy. I just don't like rooting for him, apparently. But Players is over. Always a great championship, always a good tournament. And this one obviously lived up to it. We got some weather on the weekend, caused some carnage, and it was fun. But we're going to dive into the Valspar here. Obviously, pretty strong field compared to what we usually get here. 156 golfers, top 65 in ties. Now, last year, Malnati beat Cam Young by 2 strokes. He shot 12 under. 2023, we had Taylor Moore at 10 under. And then Burns had the back-to-back wins. He had both of those at 17 under. That was 2022 and 2021. And, you know, we know this course well. It's a difficult test. It's the Copperhead Course at Innisbrook Resort. Par 71, just over 7,300 yards. It's one of the most difficult courses on tour each year. And it's interesting because it has 5 par 3s, 4 par 5s, and 9 par 4s. So, you know, it's rare that we see 5 par 3s and still get the 4 par 5s as well. So little bit of an interesting setup there. Obviously home of the Snake Pit, which is the closing holes 16, 17, and 18. 16 is a 475-yard par 4. It's the most difficult hole on the course. 24% bogey rate, almost a 6% double or more rate. So that hole can cause some carnage there. 17 is a 215-yard par 3. It's got the largest green on the course, but surrounded by bunkers. 3 putts can come into play on that one. And then 18, 445-yard par 4. Bunker line pretty much all the way up the fairway with an elevated green. So those 3 holes are going to make or break a round, and they play very difficult. As I said, this course plays generally as one of the top 10 most difficult courses on tour. Now, if we have the wind that's in the forecast right now, that is definitely going to be the case this week, but pars make up about 65% of all scores here. You got to take advantage of the par fives. That there's not a lot of scoring opportunities in them being the 4 easiest holes on the course. You definitely got to take advantage. The par threes are long. 4 of the 5 of them are over 200 yards. It's a very strategic course. Excuse me. Definitely want accuracy over distance here. I mean, it's you got to know where to place your tee shots. It's a lot more about angles than it is the exact location of your tee shots. You know, just because you're in the fairway doesn't necessarily mean that you're in the best place. So definitely want to keep an eye on that. It's a club down course. You know, the fairways tend to get a little bit thinner the further you go out. So hitting driver, even if you could hit it in the right spot, not really the best idea here. So as a result, driving accuracy comes in below tour average at about 60%. We have one of the lowest driving distances here at only 272 yards. And, you know, even though guys are trying to be accurate off the tee and clubbing down, they're really not finding fairways at a higher clip here. So definitely want to keep an eye on that. Greens in regulation also comes in below tour average, about 60%. We've got a lot of shots from 175 and up. About half of all approach shots come from that range, 175 yards and over 200. So definitely going to need guys that are dialed in with the mid to long irons. And then there's definitely going to be some around the green needed here. Now it is a little bit easier to scramble here than some other courses. So I wouldn't say around the green is going to make or break these guys this week, but if we get these 30-mile-an-hour winds, it definitely is going to come into play quite a bit here. So you definitely need a very strong tee to green game here. And as I said, as of right now, we're looking at, as the day goes on Thursday, that the winds are going to pick up quite a bit. And by about probably 3 p.m., we could be seeing 30-mile-an-hour winds. So I think there is a clear advantage for the guys going off early Thursday. And then it's similar on Friday. You know, they go off early on Thursday, they go off late on Friday. The winds are actually supposed to die down as the day goes on Friday. So they will actually be getting the best of both worlds there on Thursday and Friday. Now, obviously, I am recording this on Tuesday night, so a lot can change with the weather. Definitely got to keep an eye on that, but could be some clear wave advantages this week. And if we're looking at, you know, before we dive fully into the pricing and everything, just some guys that stuck out to me that I like in that AM PM wave. One of the first tee times, Michael Kim, been playing really good. He's 740 AM. Mac Meisner is 751. Nikolai Højgaard, 757. Straka, 813. Xander, 813. Tom Kim and Sam Burns are both going off at 824. Fleetwood at 835. Seabez at 841. Ben Hyun An, 846. Joe Highsmith, 857. And Putnam at 903. Now, I would say somewhere around that 9 o'clock mark is probably where you're going to look at cutting it off, because, you know, those guys could be finishing, getting into some of the higher wins. So I really probably, if you were strictly trying to do an AM PM, it would probably be guys that are teeing off around 9 o'clock and earlier there for me. But that's basically what I'm looking at there. If I'm going to go with some strictly AM PM builds, probably find some guys in that range there that I just named. Now, if we dive into some of the bets I've made already, I made 2 before I looked at the tee times or the weather or anything. I have Straka, which that one worked out. I have him at 25-1. Obviously, he's going out pretty early in the morning, so do like that one. And then I took Spieth at 33-1 with the top 6 each way. That one not looking as great. He's got a late tee time, and also it looks like the odds probably could have gotten a better number there than the 33. But I do like him here. You know, he playing well so far coming in. Not great at the Players, kind of fell apart there, but it's understandable. Obviously, with, you know, I'm not going to hold the Players against anybody this week, but 2 top 10s in his previous 3 tournaments. He has 2 top 10s at the Valspar, including a win. So I like Spieth this week, and, you know, Obviously, we're worried about this wind, but it's the weather. They're wrong about the weather all the time. So there's a possibility that, things could be fine. And I think Spieth's game could play well here. So I don't mind that. And then today, when the tee times came out, I made two more. I actually took Xander at 19 to 1. Now, with him, he's been striking the ball well. So he hasn't been terrible. It's more so the short game, which obviously takes a little bit of time to come back when you've been on a long layoff. So hopefully he can get that going this week. But the ball striking is absolutely there. Getting Xander in this field at basically 20 to 1 sounds pretty good to me. And he is also going off in an early tee time. So I do like that. And then I did Nikolai Højgaard at 80 to 1 with the top six each way. So I like Højgaard as well. He's actually second in my model, second on approach over the last 24 rounds, seventh in bogey avoidance. Those are two things that you really, really are going to have to pay attention to this week. He's great from the 200 plus range and 175 to 200. So going to have a lot of approach shots in that range, and then also he's very good on those par threes over 200 yards. He's sixth in that category as well. So I like Højgaard quite a bit with the top six each way there. But that's all I have so far. Probably looking to add one more guy. Still considering Zalatoris. His number dipped a little bit because of the late tee time. And like I said, I mean, the weather isn't the end all be all here. I do think that if guys can even just, we're probably not going to see low scores here. So if guys can make the weekend, they can make a move on the weekend. So I don't think that you have to completely write off anybody that's going off in the PM on Thursday. Just going to be a little bit tougher sledding for them to get out ahead of it. But Zalatoris is still in consideration for me. I do think this is a tournament that suits him and could be a winning score that suits his game as well. But if we dive into the DraftKings pricing, obviously at the very top we have Justin Thomas, 10,800. Late tee time, guy's been having some serious blow up holes on a very difficult course. I would expect most people don't go there. Now, because of that reason, I do actually have some interest there. He has the around the green game. If he's missing greens with these wins here, has a little bit of short game prowess. Now, it's a matter of whether he can get the putter going, and you got to avoid those big blow up holes. But if nobody's going to use him, I think you can make a case for Thomas. I was coming into the week and was actually planning on playing a lot less lineups this week. I was maybe going to play 5, but I think I am going to ramp it up a little bit now with the weather and the AM PM split. So going to consider some of these guys up here. I'm definitely playing Xander. As I said, I already made the outright on him. I do think with the early tee time, it bumps up his ownership a little bit there at 10,500. I expect Tommy Fleetwood to be uber chalk, probably the highest owned up here at 10,300. Just, if you're comparing Justin Thomas to Fleetwood, I think Fleetwood obviously has the safer floor, but I definitely think you can make a case that Thomas has a higher ceiling. So I wouldn't mind going to Thomas over Tommy in this one, but I do think that in my single entry and some of the smaller field stuff, I am going to play quite a bit of Fleetwood there, but we'll see what his ownership gets to because can't really play all these guys, and I like Straka as well. As I said, I made the outright on him, and the fact that he has the early tee time there, I do like that quite a bit. So I like all four of these guys, but probably going to let ownership dictate, and I might end up only playing 2 of them, maybe 3 of them. We'll see how it pans out. Skipping over Burns, I know his track record here. I think Connors makes a ton of sense here. Just been playing really, really well lately. I do worry that if the winds do pick up a little bit, maybe the short game hurts him a little bit. But I mean, it got pretty windy there at the Players, and he still looked pretty good. So I think you could consider him, but I just like Lowry and Zalatoris so much more that I definitely think that I'm going to play them over him. Now, if he's half the ownership of those two guys, maybe I switch that. Tom Kim is in consideration here. I think if you're going with the AM stack, he definitely makes more sense. Spieth, I think I'm going to go with the outright and probably not play him in DraftKings, but I'd expect he's probably not too popular. So I think you could go there. I like Michael Kim. I like Lucas Glover, just two guys that are playing incredible golf and pretty good prices here under 9K in this field. Taylor Moore, obviously, we saw what he's done here with a 12th place and a win over the last 2 years. 8,600 for him, I don't think is a bad price. Very good on the par 5 scoring. He's got a strong around the green game. He's 10th in good drives gained over the last 24 rounds. So definitely like Taylor Moore for here. Ben Hyun hasn't been great, but I do think in some larger field stuff, he's going to go overlooked. So would rather be early on him than late. And he has an early tee time. So do like that. Ben Griffin, another guy that's been playing pretty good golf here. 7,900 for him, I think, is a pretty good price. He's ninth in good drives gained over the last 24 rounds. He is seventh on those par threes over 200 yards. So do like Ben Griffin. Don't really love a ton here in the 7K range, but Bezadenhout, 7,600, another guy, early tee time, good in bogey avoidance. He's a little bit iffy off the tee, but he's got a good short game too. So I'm fine going to Bezadenhout there. Novak, another guy I kind of like here, 7,400. Been a little bit up and down recently, but he has been playing fairly well. He has some okay finishes at the Valspar in the past. So I think I am going to play some Novak here at only 7,400. He came 17th last year, 27th the year before that. So, not great, but at 7,400, I think you'd be happy with those turnouts here. Now, down in this lower 7K range, Joe Highsmith, I think this is a guy that he makes some sense here. He's very good in that 175 to 200 range. Good on the par fives. He's been striking the ball well with his irons. He's pretty good at finding the fairway as well. So I think this is a course that could suit him. I already made the case for Nikolai Højgaard. I'll definitely be playing him. Max McGreevy, 7,200 is another guy that looks like he could be pretty good here. Been playing well. He's a guy that also lives in the fairway. I've heard him brought up quite a bit here, and people are betting him as well. So keep an eye on his ownership, but don't mind him. Sam Ryder is another guy that rates out well statistically here at 7,100. So probably going to get him in the player pool there. And I mean, he's played pretty well the past couple years here, 33rd and a 19th in 2023. So fine with Sam Ryder. Joel Damon, the ball striking has been immaculate. Obviously, the players was meh. He ended up coming back and making the cut. So you do like that. 11th in bogey avoidance. He's great from that 175 to 200 yard range. He's 10th in fairways, so definitely like Damon quite a bit there at 7K. Down in the 6K range, probably only two guys I'm really looking at. Might have to dig in a little bit deeper if I do want to go down here a little, but I like Putnam. Rates out well for me. Hasn't really been a course that has worked out well for him, but he's fifth in bogey avoidance, so we know we're going to need that. First on those par threes over 200 yards, eighth in fairways gained, second in good drives gained, 13th around the green. Has a lot of what we're looking for here. And then might sprinkle in a little bit of EVR at 6,900. But basically, that's what I'm looking at here. I would say Davis Riley at 6,800. I've seen a lot of people betting him. Definitely going to get away from him there. If that many people are betting him, I would say it's probably going to translate to DraftKings as well. So just keep an eye on that. But wanted to bring his name up and just I will not be playing him, but I do think he's going to be fairly popular here. Another guy that I'm considering is KH Lee down here. I think he's 6,200. So hasn't been playing incredible, but has played well at the Valspar in the past. 6,200 is a pretty cheap price, so I think you could consider it there. But that's basically what we're looking at for this week with the Valspar. Definitely want to keep up to date with the weather, and if you're playing enough lineups, I would definitely say that it makes sense to go with the AM PM stack. Now, obviously, if everything switches around, then maybe you can go opposite. And if you're playing enough lineups, go with the PM AM stack, because we've seen it where it completely flips on its head, and if everybody's going the other way, it gives you huge leverage basically without even having to try there. So just some thoughts for this week for the Valspar. I tend to like this tournament. It's the last of the Florida swing. We see it play rather difficult, which with the weather, we're definitely going to get that this week. So it should live up to that. And that's going to do it for this week for me. As always, thank you for listening. Greatly appreciated. I'm your host, Derek Helm. And remember,
Just have fun out there.